My pregnant wife was screaming in the delivery room, but not from labor pain. The HOA president was forcing out her only support person while our baby's heart was failing. She had no idea I was chief of surgery. Big mistake. Very big mistake. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The fluorescent lights of Memorial Hospital's 4th floor hummed their eternal song as I stood frozen outside labor and delivery room 7. My hands trembled against the cold wall, my doctor's coat suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Inside that room, my wife Sarah was screaming. Not the screams of labor pain. These were different. These were screams of pure anguish, of someone being torn apart emotionally while their body was already being torn apart physically. Get out. You don't belong here. That voice. That shrill, entitled voice that had made our lives a living nightmare for the past 8 months. Margaret Chen, president of the Riverside Estates Homeowners Association. My mother-in-law. I had been in surgery when Sarah went into labor 3 weeks early. A complicated appendectomy on a 12-year-old boy whose parents were terrified. I had stayed because that was my duty as chief of surgery. I had promised Sarah I would be there, but Dr. Marcus Chen was supposed to be monitoring her. He was the best obstetrician in the state. He was also Margaret's husband, and he had mysteriously been called away on an emergency just 30 minutes ago. Now I understood why. Please, Mom, please. Sarah's voice cracked with desperation. I need her here. Emily is my friend. She's my support person. David is in surgery and I can't do this alone. You have me. I am your mother. That girl is nothing but trailer trash who doesn't belong in our family's sacred moment. My legs finally remembered how to move. I pushed through the door, and the scene before me shattered something deep in my chest. Sarah was on the bed, her face red and swollen with tears, her hospital gown soaked with sweat. Her contractions were clearly intense, her belly tight and hard. The fetal monitor showed our baby's heartbeat racing too fast. Stress. Our daughter was in distress. Standing beside the bed was Emily Rodriguez, a 23-year-old nurse from the pediatric ward. She had become Sarah's closest friend over the past year. Emily's own mother had died when she was young, and Sarah had lost her father when she was 15. They had bonded over grief, over love of old movies, over their shared dream of making the world gentler. Emily's hands were on Sarah's shoulders, trying to comfort her, but she was crying too. Tears streamed down her brown cheeks as she whispered, "It's okay, Sarah. I can go. I don't want to 'cause you stress." Margaret Chen stood between them and the door like a designer-dressed dragon guarding her hoard. Her silk blouse probably cost more than Emily made in a month. Her perfectly styled hair didn't have a strand out of place. Her makeup was flawless. And her eyes were full of cold, calculated cruelty. "You will leave now, or I will have security remove you," Margaret hissed at Emily. "This is a family moment. You are not family. You are a subordinate, a servant, and you have no right to be here for the birth of my grandchild." "Mom, stop." Sarah sobbed. "She's not leaving. I want her here." "You don't know what you want. You're in pain, you're not thinking clearly. When David gets here, he'll agree with me. That boy knows his place in this family. That boy. She always called me that. Despite my MD from Johns Hopkins. Despite being chief of surgery at 34. Despite 6 years of marriage to her daughter. I was still that boy who had grown up in a 3-bedroom ranch house instead of a mansion. That boy whose father was a mechanic instead of a real estate mogul. That boy who wasn't good enough for her perfect daughter. The rage that flooded through me was white hot and arctic cold all at once. "Get away from my wife." My voice came out low and dangerous. Everyone's head snapped toward me. "David." Sarah's face flooded with relief, but then another contraction hit. She screamed, her back arching. The monitor alarm started beeping. The baby's heart rate was dropping now. Margaret turned to me with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "David, darling, finally. I was just explaining to this young woman that she needs to leave. Family only during delivery. You understand. Surely you agree that proper protocol must be maintained. This girl is simply not appropriate for such an intimate family moment." I said, "Get away from my wife." I moved to Sarah's bedside, taking her hand. It was ice cold despite the sweat pouring off her. Her fingers gripped mine desperately, like I was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. "Emily, please stay. Sarah needs you." Emily looked between me and Margaret, terrified. She was young, she was low in the hospital hierarchy, and she knew Margaret had the power to destroy careers. Margaret and Marcus donated millions to this hospital. Margaret sat on the board of directors. The Chen family name was on the pediatric wing. One word from Margaret could end Emily's nursing career before it truly began. I could see the fear in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly as she held Sarah's shoulder. "David, don't be ridiculous," Margaret said, her voice sharpening. "This girl is not family. She doesn't belong in this intimate moment. What would people think?" "I don't give a damn what people think." Sarah screamed, her voice raw. "Get out, Mom. Get out." Another contraction. The monitor alarm grew more insistent. I looked at the readings and felt ice flood my veins. Our daughter's heart rate was down to 80 beats per minute. Normal was 120 to 160. She was in serious distress. "Where's Dr. Chen?" I demanded. "Marcus had an emergency," Margaret said smoothly. "He'll be back soon. Until then, I'm staying to make sure everything is proper." An emergency. I looked at her, and suddenly everything clicked into place. "You sent him away. You knew I was in surgery. You wanted to control this moment. Don't be paranoid, David. My husband is a professional. Your husband is a coward who does whatever you tell him." I reached for the call button. "Sarah needs her doctor now. Our baby is in distress. Don't be so dramatic. First babies always take forever. There's plenty of time." Margaret waved her hand dismissively. "Now, can we please remove this girl so we can focus on what matters?" "What matters?" Emily's voice was small but fierce. "What matters is that Sarah is terrified and in pain and her baby is in trouble. How can you not see that? You do not speak to me that way." Margaret's face flushed red. "You little nobody. Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," Emily said, her voice shaking but steady. "You're the woman who made Sarah cry every single day of her pregnancy. You're the woman who told her she was getting fat when she was growing a human being. You're the woman who said she was selfish for wanting a natural birth instead of a scheduled C-section that fit your calendar. You're the woman who made her feel like she wasn't good enough to be a mother because she wanted to breastfeed instead of using formula so you could show off feeding the baby at your country club." The room went silent except for Sarah's labored breathing and the screaming monitor. Margaret's face went from red to purple. "You are fired. Do you hear me? Fired. I will make sure you never work in healthcare again." "You can't fire her," I said quietly. "She doesn't work for you. She works for this hospital, and I am on the board. And I am chief of surgery." I locked eyes with her. Emily is Sarah's chosen support person. She stays. You leave. Margaret's jaw dropped. For a moment, she looked genuinely shocked. In all her scheming and controlling, she had forgotten this crucial detail. Or perhaps she had never truly understood what it meant. Chief of surgery wasn't just a fancy title. It meant I outranked nearly everyone in this hospital. It meant I had authority over patient care decisions. It meant her board position, her donations, her social connections meant nothing in this room. I watched the realization dawn on her face, watched her carefully constructed facade of control start to crack. But the board. I have influence. She stammered, something I had never heard her do before. Margaret Chen never stammered. She commanded, she demanded, she controlled. But right now, in this moment, she was losing. The board doesn't override medical decisions made by attending physicians, I said calmly. And right now, I'm making a medical decision. Your presence is detrimental to my patient's health. You need to leave immediately. I am the grandmother. I have rights. You have the right to be respectful or leave. You're choosing to leave. Sarah was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Another contraction hit, and she screamed so loudly that the nurse from the station came running in. What's happening? The nurse, Janet, was a 20-year veteran. She took one look at the monitor and her eyes went wide. Dr. Williams, the baby's heart rate is critical. I was already moving, examining Sarah. She was fully dilated, but the baby was in distress. I could see the problem immediately. The umbilical cord was compressed. Our daughter wasn't getting enough oxygen. We need Dr. Chen here now, I told Janet. Page him emergent. If he doesn't respond in 2 minutes, page Dr. Sullivan. You can't override my husband. Margaret shrieked. Watch me. I turned to her. Get out of this room right now or I will have security remove you. You wouldn't dare. Try me. We stared at each other. In that moment, I saw everything. The years of subtle insults. The constant undermining. The way she had made Sarah doubt herself at every turn. The way she had turned what should have been a joyous pregnancy into 9 months of stress and tears. The way she had tried to control every aspect of our lives, from where we lived to how we decorated to when we had sex to conceive to what we would name our child. She had forced us to move into Riverside Estates, the community she ruled like a tyrant. She had written us up for having our trash cans visible from the street. For planting flowers she didn't approve of. For Sarah's car being too old and decrepit for the neighborhood, even though it was only 5 years old. She had fined us, threatened us, and made our home feel like a prison. And now she was trying to take this moment too. Security to labor and delivery room 7, I said into the call button. Margaret's eyes went wide with shock. You're calling security on your own mother-in-law. I'm protecting my wife and child from someone who is causing them medical harm. Medical harm? I'm trying to help. You're killing my baby. Sarah screamed. Can't you see that? Every time you open your mouth, her heart rate drops. You're stressing me out so much that you're killing my baby. The words hung in the air like smoke. Margaret's face went white. Dr. Sullivan burst through the door, a tall woman with gray hair and steady hands. She took one look at the scene and said, everyone out except parents and medical staff. I'm the grandmother. Margaret tried one more time. I'm the doctor, and I said out. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Margaret looked at them, then at me, then at Sarah. You'll regret this, she whispered to me. Both of you. You have no idea what I can do to your lives. Get out. My voice was ice. She left, her heels clicking on the linoleum like gunshots. The moment she was gone, Sarah's whole body seemed to relax just slightly. The baby's heart rate started to climb. 90 beats per minute. 100. Emily, I need you on Sarah's right side, Dr. Sullivan said, all business. Talk to her. Keep her calm. Dad, you're on the left. This baby needs to come out in the next few minutes. The next 20 minutes were a blur of pain and fear and determination. Sarah pushed with everything she had. Emily whispered encouragement, held her hand, wiped her forehead. I counted breaths, supported her leg, told her how strong she was, how brave, how perfect. And then, at 3:47 p.m., our daughter entered the world. She didn't cry at first. Those few seconds of silence were the longest of my life. Dr. Sullivan suctioned her mouth and nose, rubbed her chest, and then finally, we heard it. A tiny, angry wail. "She's okay," Dr. Sullivan said, smiling. "She's perfect." They laid her on Sarah's chest, and my wife dissolved into sobs. Happy sobs this time. Emily was crying too, laughing and crying and squeezing Sarah's shoulder. "You did it," Emily whispered. "Oh my God, Sarah, you did it. She's beautiful." She was. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfection. Dark hair like Sarah's. My nose. Her own unique mouth. Fingers that wrapped around mine with surprising strength. "Lily," Sarah whispered. "Her name is Lily." We had fought Margaret on this for weeks. Margaret wanted Victoria, or Elizabeth, or something proper. Sarah wanted Lily, after her father's mother. We had stood firm, but it had cost us. More fights. More threats. More stress. But now, holding our daughter, none of that mattered. Dr. Sullivan finished up while we bonded with Lily. Emily took photos with Sarah's phone, capturing those first precious moments. The nurse weighed and measured Lily, did all the standard checks. Everything was perfect. "I need to talk to you both," Dr. Sullivan said quietly after things had calmed down. "What happened here today was unacceptable. A birthing mother's stress levels directly impact the baby. Your mother," she looked at Sarah, "put your child's life at risk with her behavior." "I know," Sarah said softly, holding Lily close. "I know. I'm going to have to file a report. The hospital takes these matters seriously." I nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Sullivan." She left, and we were alone with Emily and our daughter. Emily was getting ready to leave, to give us privacy, but Sarah caught her hand. "Thank you," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for being the mother I needed today." Emily broke down. "I didn't do anything. You did all the work. You did everything," Sarah insisted. "You've been my rock through this whole pregnancy. When I was throwing up every morning, you brought me ginger tea. When I was scared about the delivery, you took childbirth classes with me because David was working nights. When my mother made me cry, you reminded me that I was going to be a good mom. You did everything, Emily." They hugged, both crying, and I felt tears burning in my own eyes. A knock at the door made us all tense. But it wasn't Margaret. It was Marcus Chen, looking exhausted and guilty. "David," he said quietly. "May I come in?" I wanted to say no. But he looked broken, and I'd known him for 6 years. He was a good doctor. A weak man when it came to his wife, but a good doctor. 5 minutes, I said. He came in, looked at Lily, and his face crumpled. "She's beautiful. Congratulations." Then he turned to Sarah. "I'm so sorry. Margaret called and said you were asking for me to leave so she could have alone time with you. I thought it was strange, but she was so insistent. When I tried to come back 30 minutes ago, she texted and said you were sleeping, that I should wait. I should have known. I should have checked. I'm so sorry." Sarah just looked at him, holding Lily closer. "I've failed you as a doctor today," Marcus continued. "Your daughter could have died because I wasn't here. Because I let my wife manipulate me. That's unforgivable." "You're right," I said. "It is." He nodded. "I'm removing myself from your care. Dr. Sullivan will handle your postpartum follow-ups. And I'm going to recommend to the board that Margaret be removed from her position. What she did today crossed every line. She'll divorce you if you do that," Sarah said quietly. "I know." Marcus looked at her. But some things are more important than a marriage that died 20 years ago. I'm tired of being her puppet. I'm tired of watching her hurt people. I'm tired of being a coward. He looked at Emily. Young lady, I don't know you, but thank you for being brave when I wasn't. Emily just nodded, too emotional to speak. Marcus left. We sat in silence for a while, just absorbing everything that had happened. Lily started to root against Sarah's chest, looking for food. The nurse came in to help with the first feeding, and Emily stepped out to give us privacy. As Lily latched on, her tiny hand wrapped around Sarah's finger, my wife looked at me with exhausted eyes. I don't want my mother in our lives anymore, she said. I know that sounds terrible. I know she's my mom. But I can't let her hurt our daughter the way she's hurt me. I can't let Lily grow up thinking love is supposed to feel like criticism and control and constant disappointment. I support whatever you decide, I told her, kissing her forehead. But you don't sound terrible. You sound like a mother protecting her child. She's going to make our lives hell, Sarah whispered. The HOA, the social circle, the hospital board. She has so much power. Let her try. I felt a fierce protectiveness rise in me. I'm chief of surgery. I have power too. And I'm done being silent about her abuse. Over the next few days in the hospital, the fallout began. Margaret tried to visit, but Sarah refused to see her. Margaret sent flowers, gifts, and lengthy text messages alternating between apologetic and accusatory. She told Sarah she was being manipulated by me and Emily. She said she was only trying to help. She said Sarah would regret this when she needed help with the baby. But Sarah stood firm. For the first time in her life, she set a boundary with her mother and held it. Marcus kept his word. He submitted his recommendation to the board, along with a detailed account of what had happened in the delivery room. 3 other board members came forward with their own stories of Margaret's bullying and manipulation. It turned out we weren't the only ones who had suffered. A young resident shared how Margaret had tried to get her fired because she didn't like the doctor's tattoos. An elderly nurse revealed that Margaret had blocked her promotion because she came from a working-class background. A janitor spoke up about being verbally abused by Margaret in front of patients because he had accidentally left a mop bucket in a hallway she was walking through. An emergency board meeting was called. Margaret was asked to resign. She refused. She threatened to sue. She called in favors. She tried to paint herself as the victim. But Dr. Sullivan's medical report was damning. Patient experienced dangerous levels of stress due to family members' aggressive behavior. Baby's heart rate dropped to critical levels. Without immediate intervention, this situation could have resulted in fetal death or permanent neurological damage. The board had no choice. Margaret was removed. She was also banned from hospital grounds except as a patient or for scheduled, approved visits. The HOA was Messier. Margaret tried to use her position to make our lives miserable. She wrote us up for having visitors after 9 p.m. when Emily came to help with night feedings. She cited us for noise violations when Lily cried. She tried to fine us for having a stroller visible on our porch. But I'd had enough. I started attending HOA meetings. I brought copies of the governing documents and pointed out that Margaret had been violating them for years, using her position to target people she didn't like while ignoring identical violations by her friends. I brought other neighbors who had been bullied. There was the elderly couple who had been fined for their garden gnomes while Margaret's friend had an entire yard full of decorative statues. There was the single mother who had been threatened with eviction over a small oil stain in her driveway while another resident with connections to Margaret had a rusted boat parked in their yard for months. There was the young family who had been written up for their children's chalk drawings on the sidewalk while Margaret's own grandchildren from her other daughter were never mentioned when they did the same thing during their visits. The evidence was overwhelming. The other homeowners were tired of living in fear. We voted her out. She fought it. She hired lawyers. She made threats. She told everyone who would listen that I had brainwashed her daughter and stolen her grandchild. But the truth was simpler and sadder. She had stolen her own relationship with her grandchild through years of cruelty disguised as care. 6 months after Lily's birth, Marcus filed for divorce. He moved into a modest condo and started therapy. He sent Sarah a long letter apologizing for enabling Margaret for so many years, for choosing peace over what was right, for failing to protect his own daughter from her mother's toxicity. Sarah wrote back. They started having lunch once a month. Marcus met Lily and held her with tears in his eyes. He was trying to be better, and Sarah decided that was worth something. Margaret, meanwhile, spiraled. Without the hospital board and the HOA, she lost her primary sources of power. Her friends started distancing themselves once they saw how she truly behaved. Marcus's divorce settlement was generous but not enough to maintain her lavish lifestyle alone. She had to sell the mansion and move into a luxury apartment. To her, this was the ultimate humiliation. She tried to maintain her social standing. She joined other boards, other clubs, other organizations where she could wield influence. But her reputation had preceded her. People were wary. They had heard the stories. They didn't want the drama. She made one last attempt to see Lily on her first birthday. She showed up at our house uninvited, carrying an enormous gift basket and wearing a fake smile. Sarah answered the door. I stood behind her, holding Lily. Hello, sweetheart, Margaret said, her voice dripping with sweetness. I know we've had our differences, but surely you won't keep me from my only grandchild on her birthday. You kept yourself from her, Sarah said quietly. When you chose control over connection. When you made my pregnancy about your ego. When you put my baby's life at risk because you couldn't stand that I had a friend you didn't approve of. I made mistakes, but I'm still your mother. You're a woman who gave birth to me, Sarah corrected. But Emily has been more of a mother to me this past year than you were my entire life. Emily holds my hair when I'm sick. She brings me food when I'm too tired to cook. She babysits without making me feel guilty. She tells me I'm doing a good job even when I make mistakes. She loves me without conditions. That girl is not your mother. You're right. She's better. She's what a mother should be. Sarah's voice was steady now, sure. And that's what I'm going to be for Lily. Not what you were to me. If you don't let me in right now, I will never forgive you. I've spent my whole life trying to earn your forgiveness for existing, Sarah said. I'm done. Lily will grow up knowing she's loved exactly as she is. She'll never wonder if her mother is proud of her. She'll never cry herself to sleep because I said her dreams were stupid. She'll never bring home a person she loves and watch me treat them like garbage. She'll never have to choose between me and her own happiness. And if that means she grows up without knowing you, then that's the price I'm willing to pay to break this cycle. Margaret's face twisted with rage and something else. Something that might have been grief, if she was capable of it. You'll regret this, she hissed. Both of you. That baby will grow up asking why she doesn't have a grandmother, and you'll have to explain that you're petty, ungrateful people who cut off family over minor disagreements. Minor disagreements? I spoke up for the first time. You almost killed our daughter. The medical report is clear. If we'd waited even 5 more minutes, Lily could have died or suffered brain damage from oxygen deprivation. That's not a minor disagreement. That's endangerment. Margaret's face went white. In all these months, no one had put it quite that bluntly to her. You'll never prove that, she whispered. I don't need to prove it to anyone but myself, I said. I saw the monitors. I read the charts. I know what almost happened. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. We closed the door. Margaret stood on the porch for a long moment, then left. She tried a few more times over the years, always with the same result. Once she sent a lawyer's letter threatening to sue for grandparent rights. Our attorney responded with the medical records and statements from Dr. Sullivan, Emily, and the nurses who had witnessed her behavior. We never heard from the lawyer again. Lily is 3 now. She's funny and fierce and gentle all at once. She loves books and bugs and her stuffed elephant named Peanut. She calls Emily Auntie and lights up when she sees her. She has no idea that somewhere out there is a woman who shares her DNA but not her life. And honestly, she's better off for it. She's growing up in a home filled with laughter instead of criticism, with encouragement instead of impossible standards, with love that has no conditions attached to it. I watch her sometimes, playing in the backyard with Sarah, and I see the difference. Sarah never second-guesses herself the way she used to. She doesn't flinch when Lily makes a mess. She doesn't apologize for Lily being loud or energetic or curious. She celebrates our daughter's personality instead of trying to mold it into something acceptable. That's the gift of breaking the cycle. That's what freedom looks like. Maybe one day we'll tell her the full story. Maybe when she's old enough to understand that sometimes love means knowing when to walk away. That sometimes the family you choose is more real than the family you're born into. That sometimes protecting someone means keeping them from people who are supposed to love them but don't know how. Sarah is a different person now. Stronger. Surer. She's gone back to school to become a therapist, specializing in helping people break free from toxic family systems. She wants to help others find the courage she found in that delivery room. Her professors praise her insight, her empathy, her ability to understand complex family dynamics. She knows these things because she lived them. Marcus visits once a month. He's dating a kind woman who teaches elementary school. He's in therapy and working on his people-pleasing patterns. He's trying to build a real relationship with Sarah and Lily, based on honesty instead of obligation. It's slow, but it's real. He brings books for Lily and listens to Sarah talk about her studies. He doesn't try to make excuses for Margaret anymore. He just tries to be present and supportive in the ways he wasn't before. Emily is still our best friend. She's engaged now to a wonderful man who treats her like she hung the moon. Sarah is her maid of honor. Lily is the flower girl. We're family in every way that matters. Emily's fiancé, James, is a teacher who volunteers at a youth center. He fits into our chosen family perfectly, bringing his own warmth and kindness to our circle. As for me, I think about that day often. About standing in that hallway, hearing my wife scream. About the moment I walked in and saw the fear in her eyes. About the monitor showing our daughter's heart rate dropping. I think about how close we came to losing her. Not because of a medical emergency we couldn't control, but because of one person's need for power over love. And I think about the choice Sarah made. To stand up to the person who had controlled her entire life. To say no. To choose her child and herself over the myth that blood automatically means family. It wasn't easy. There were months of guilt and grief and questioning. There were well-meaning people who told her she was overreacting, that she should forgive, that family is family. There were hard moments when she missed having a mother, even a toxic one. There were holidays that felt empty without extended family. There were moments when she wondered if she was depriving Lily of something important. But then she'd look at Lily, laughing and free and unafraid, and she'd know she made the right choice. One evening, when Lily was about 2, Sarah was putting her to bed. I overheard them from the hallway. "Mama, why don't I have a grandma like Emma?" Lily asked. Her friend Emma had a doting grandmother who brought cookies and told stories. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Some people aren't good at loving others, baby. It's not your fault, and it's not Mama's fault. It's just the way some people are. But you have Auntie Emily, and Grandpa Marcus, and so many people who love you so much. Sometimes the family we choose is the one that matters most." Like Auntie M? Exactly like Auntie M. Okay, Mama. I love Auntie M. Me too, baby. Me too. Later, when Lily was asleep, Sarah and I sat on the couch together. She leaned against me, exhausted but content. "Do you think I'm a bad person?" she asked quietly. "For keeping Lily away from my mother?" "I think you're the best person," I told her. "You broke a cycle. You chose your daughter's well-being over your own comfort. That's not easy. That's brave. It doesn't always feel brave. Sometimes it just feels sad. It can be both." She was quiet for a moment. "Then, thank you for standing up to her that day. In the delivery room. I was so scared and in so much pain, and I couldn't fight anymore. But you did. You fought for us. I'll always fight for us," I promised. Always. 3 years later, and that promise still stands. We still live in Riverside Estates, but under new HOA management that actually follows the rules. We've made it a home now, with Lily's chalk drawings on the driveway and her toys scattered on the lawn and neighbors who smile instead of scowl. Sometimes I drive past the luxury apartment building where Margaret lives. I wonder if she ever thinks about what she lost. If she understands that the grandchild she could have had, the relationship she could have treasured, was traded away for power and control and the need to always be right. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. I think about Sarah, who found her voice when it mattered most. I think about Emily, who showed us that family is chosen with the heart, not just the blood. I think about Lily, growing up knowing she's loved unconditionally, that her voice matters, that she doesn't have to earn affection or approval. And I think about that day in the delivery room. The worst and best day of my life. The day I almost lost everything. The day Sarah became not just my wife and Lily's mother, but her own person, free at last. The day a HOA Karen forced my wife out of a delivery room and learned, too late, that some battles aren't worth winning. Because in the end, Margaret got exactly what she wanted. She maintained her power, her control, her pride. She just lost her family along the way. And we gained everything that matters. We gained peace. We gained authenticity. We gained the freedom to raise our daughter in an environment of love rather than judgment. We gained friendships that were real and deep rather than transactional. We gained the ability to look at ourselves in the mirror and know we had done the right thing, even when it was the hard thing. Sometimes I see Margaret from a distance. At the grocery store, at a restaurant, once at a medical conference where she was attending as a donor. She looked smaller somehow. Less formidable. The armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup can't hide the loneliness in her eyes. Part of me feels sorry for her. Part of me wishes things could have been different. But the larger part of me knows that some people are not capable of change. That some people choose their pride over their relationships, their need to be right over their need to be loved. And that's not on us. That was never on us.